There is a feeling many women have been taught to call chemistry. Your heart races. You check your phone. You replay the conversation. One moment, you feel chosen. The next, you feel him pulling away. And strangely, the uncertainty makes you want him even more. You tell yourself there is something special between you, something intense, something magnetic. But what if the feeling you have been calling chemistry is actually anxiety? What if the butterflies are not always telling you that you have found someone extraordinary? What if sometimes they are telling you that something inside you has been activated? Carl Jung believed that much of what governs our attraction operates beneath conscious awareness. We do not simply meet another person. We meet our projections, our complexes, our forgotten wounds, our unlived desires, and sometimes the person who feels the most intoxicating is not the person most compatible with who we are becoming. He is simply the person who knows how to awaken something we have not yet made conscious. And until you understand that, anxiety can feel remarkably similar to love. Think about the attractions that consumed you the most. Was there peace or anticipation? Were you secure or constantly interpreting? Was his affection clear, or did you have to search for evidence of it? A message felt euphoric. Silence felt devastating. Distance made you question everything. And because your emotional state became so heightened around him, you assumed the connection must be profound. But intensity is not intimacy, and uncertainty is not mystery. Sometimes what feels like attraction is your nervous system responding to unpredictability. He texts. Relief. He withdraws. Anxiety. He returns. Relief. Eventually, the cycle itself begins to feel romantic. You call it passion. You call it chemistry. Maybe even fate. But the deeper question is, why does uncertainty feel so familiar to you? Jung believed that what remains unconscious continues to influence us. It shapes our fears, fantasies, reactions, and our attractions. This is why two women can meet the same man and experience him completely differently. One sees inconsistency and loses interest. Another sees inconsistency and becomes fascinated. The difference may not be the man. It may be what he activates. Sometimes a person awakens an old emotional pattern so precisely that familiarity feels like recognition. You think, I've never felt this way before. But somewhere deeper, your psyche may be saying, I know this feeling, waiting, wondering, trying harder, reading the room, hoping someone emotionally distant will finally turn toward you. The person is new, but the emotional pattern is old, and familiarity can easily be mistaken for destiny. Jung wrote extensively about projection, the unconscious process of placing parts of our inner world onto another person. Especially in the beginning, we don't only see who someone is. We see possibility, fantasy, desire. We fill in what we do not know, and sometimes the attraction becomes enormous before the relationship has even had time to become real. You barely know him, but your imagination does. You interpret his silence. You imagine his potential. You create meaning around every interaction. Soon, you are emotionally attached not only to who he is, but to what he represents. Maybe he represents validation. Maybe being chosen by him would finally prove that you are desirable, worthy, enough. Maybe he possesses qualities you have not fully claimed within yourself. Confidence, independence, boldness, power. And suddenly losing him doesn't feel like losing one man. It feels like losing something you were hoping to find through him. This is why one of the most powerful questions you can ask is not, "How do I get him?" but, "What does my attraction to him reveal about me? What am I projecting onto him? What feeling does he awaken? What am I hoping his attention will prove?" When you begin asking those questions, the projection starts returning home, and sometimes the spell begins to break. Then you meet someone different. He communicates. He follows through. You know where you stand. There are no disappearing acts, no cryptic messages, no emotional scavenger hunt. And you think, something is missing. There are no dramatic highs, no desperate need to hear from him, and because your body is no longer being thrown between anxiety and relief, you may interpret the absence of anxiety as the absence of chemistry. You call him boring. But maybe boring isn't what you're experiencing. Maybe you're experiencing something your nervous system hasn't learned to romanticize. Peace. This doesn't mean you should force attraction. Desire matters. Compatibility matters. But there is a difference between attraction and activation. One expands you, the other consumes you. One allows you to remain yourself. The other turns you into a detective. One creates curiosity. The other creates obsession. Learning the difference can change your entire romantic life. Jung's shadow is not simply everything dark within us. It contains the parts of ourselves we have pushed outside our conscious identity. And sometimes what you have buried isn't weakness, it's power. Maybe you learn to be agreeable, so you become fascinated by someone unapologetic. Maybe you learn to be responsible, so you're drawn toward someone reckless and spontaneous. Maybe you suppress anger, so confidence and dominance feel intoxicating. Maybe you learn to seek approval, so the person who withholds approval suddenly becomes irresistible. Your attraction may contain information. Instead of judging yourself for it, study it. Ask, what quality am I seeing in this person that I need to reclaim within myself? Because sometimes you aren't meant to possess the person. You're meant to reclaim the part of yourself you projected onto them. There comes a point in individuation when a woman becomes less impressed by emotional intensity. Not because she becomes cold, because she becomes conscious. She notices the racing heart without immediately calling it love. She notices the urge to chase without obeying it. She notices herself fantasizing and asks what she actually knows, and she stops evaluating relationships only by how strongly someone makes her feel. Instead, she asks, can I speak honestly here? Can I relax? Can I maintain my standards? Do his actions match his words? Do I remain connected to my own life? Am I attracted to who he actually is? Or am I addicted to wondering whether he will choose me? That question can be uncomfortable, but it can also set you free. Because sometimes you don't miss the person. You miss the pursuit. You miss the fantasy. You miss the emotional high of finally receiving what had previously been withheld. Once you see the pattern clearly, you can no longer experience it quite the same way. Consciousness changes the attraction. Healthy attraction does not have to be dull. It can be sensual, playful, electric, deep, passionate. But it does not require you to abandon yourself. You don't have to become smaller to keep it. You don't have to decode basic communication. You don't have to betray your standards because the connection feels rare. And you don't have to spend your days wondering where you stand. The sovereign woman understands something the anxious version of herself once struggled to believe. Love does not become more valuable because it is difficult to obtain. She no longer measures chemistry by how destabilized she feels. She watches consistency, character, reciprocity, integrity, and she watches herself. Who does she become around this person? More grounded, more alive, more herself, or more anxious, obsessive, and uncertain? The next time someone creates that overwhelming rush inside you, you don't have to run from it, and you don't have to surrender to it. Pause. Become curious. Ask yourself, is this attraction or activation? Do I actually like this person, or do I desperately want this person to like me? Am I excited because something beautiful is developing, or because I don't know what is going to happen next? Am I discovering him, or am I projecting onto him? Do I feel more like myself around him, or less? You don't need to answer immediately. Just observe. Because observation interrupts unconscious repetition, and that is where sovereignty begins. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The people who once would have consumed you stop having the same power. The inconsistent man becomes less mysterious. The unavailable man becomes less desirable. The person who gives you crumbs no longer seems profound simply because you had to work for them. You see clearly, and clarity changes attraction. You may even look back at someone you once considered irresistible and wonder, what did I see in him? You were seeing him through an earlier version of yourself, a version still trying to resolve something unconscious through another person. But now you know. The feeling of being activated is not proof that someone belongs in your life. Sometimes it is simply an invitation to look inward. And once you do, you stop asking, why won't he choose me? And begin asking, why would I choose something that costs me my peace? That is the shift. Not from passion to numbness, not from romance to calculation, but from unconscious attraction to conscious choice. Jung believed individuation was the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. And perhaps one of the quietest signs that process is happening is this. You stop confusing the person who awakens your anxiety with the person who awakens your soul. Because butterflies can be beautiful, but peace can be beautiful too. And the woman who finally knows the difference becomes much harder to lure away from herself. If this spoke to something you've experienced, tell me in the comments. Have you ever mistaken anxiety for chemistry? And subscribe to The Sovereign Path for more explorations of Jungian psychology, feminine sovereignty, and the unconscious patterns that shape our relationships. Because the goal isn't simply to find someone who chooses you, it's to become conscious enough to choose what is worthy of you.